Hello, everyone. Welcome to the call. My name is Dr. Kirk Fisnick. We'll get started shortly. Hey, Andrea, hang on one second. I'm going to move you to the panel. I'll make you the co-host.
Hello, Doc.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
All right.
How are you?
All right. I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. Another beautiful day. We had some rain last night. I love it.
Oh, that's
The
good.
grass is, you know, we had rain on Friday and we had rain again yesterday.
Amazing. Send it
It
our
is.
way.
Oh, you guys don't need it, do you? I thought you guys have been getting rain all winter, all summer.
We have, but the last week it's been like in the high 80s, and today it's going to be like 90.
90? Oh, that's nothing.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've had a warm summer. But
Too hot for redheads.
yep. Yep. I had red hair when I was born.
You told me that once.
Yep, I did. And then it turned different color. And now it's turning a different color again. Well, it turned a different color a while ago. Now it's turning a different color again.
How about that?
Yeah, that's what happens. So, hey, how are you? Things good?
I'm good. I'm good.
All right. You know, I kind of laugh about it. I get on this call and I wake up in the morning on Tuesdays and typically I wake up and first thing that runs through my mind, oh man, what am I going to talk about today?
I know. I wish you'd do it on a Monday, though.
The call?
No. Think about what you want to talk about on Tuesday.
Well, I do. On Monday nights, I'm sitting there on my chair and I'm watching, you know, the news or whatever. And I'm trying to go, okay, what do people want to hear? What do they want to talk about? And, you know, top of mind awareness, of course, is the virus and the vaccines, but we can't talk about that every week.
I'm so tired of talking about that. Forget it.
Yeah. See, and I think that's where most people are. They're just so tired of talking about it. They're so tired of hearing about it and everything like that. So, you know, that's why on Monday nights, you know, I think about it and I go, nah. So then I wait till Tuesday morning and then I sit here on Tuesday morning after I make my breakfast for me and the dogs. And I made French toast for me and the dogs today. They loved it.
I bet.
Yeah, they got to have real maple syrup.
Really?
They really enjoyed it.
Did they make a mess or did they just eat it down?
They eat it every drop of the syrup. They don't spill anything.
Right.
Right. So, you know, I think taking care of our pets, our furry friends, is just as important as taking care of ourselves.
Yep.
You know, if you're
That's
going to have
for
a
sure.
pet, you want to make sure and do a good job of taking care of them.
And actually, you know, they need supplementation just like we do. We had a call about that once.
Yeah, we might have to talk about that again. Yeah, you know, the big thing is that we can't really talk about it so much because veterinarian medicine is so broad. You know, really, actually, if you put your dog on a leash and take your dog for a walk, it's actually, you know, technically going by their law, you're practicing veterinarian medicine if you put a leash on your dog.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's what a vet told me. He said, so, you know, it's too restrictive. But I mean, I know why, because otherwise there'd be people selling, you know, garbage for you to give. And there are. Just like there is for humans. I mean, you can go online and holy cow, they'll sell you anything.
Right.
You know, some of it's good. Just because it doesn't have FDA approval, it's
Well,
good.
if it does have FDA approval, I would say run.
You know, they're I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say that because there's
Don't
stuff
even
that
say
is
it. Let's change the topic.
okay. let's change the topic. So, Andrea, today I was sitting here and I was going, okay, what should we talk about today? And I thought, let's talk about total body wellness.
Let's start with the head.
From head to toe. That's what I thought we'd talk about, from head to toe. So, I sent you a copy of my notes, right? Not much on there, is there? That most days when I take notes, that's what I do, is I don't put much on there. It's just kind of a, to keep me on track, to keep me focused, so I can look over at my notes and go, oh, I didn't talk about that yet.
Right.
Hopefully you could read my writing.
I could.
Good. So
I had 9 years of college, so I write just like that.
Okay. And, the more I write, the sloppier it gets. So when we're talking about the head, the first thing, of course, is the hair. That's the first thing a lot of people notice, when you look at somebody's head, is you look at their hair.
Right.
And, do they have any? And is it gray? So let's talk about that. What causes the hair to gray?
Senescent cells.
Senescent cells. Good. You learned.
What are senescent cells? They're zombie cells.
They're
bad cells. They're bad.
They're bad. Yeah, they're bad. And when you say they're bad, basically, when we take a look at it, senescent cells are cells that they've outlived their useful lifespan.
Right. But they won't die.
They've outlived their useful lifespan, and they won't die. And like you said, they're zombie cells, because now what they do is they go look for other cells that they can damage.
Right.
And they want to get into a riot. They want to cause riots in your body. And as they do so, they don't want to go rioting on their own. They want to get, you come with me, and so they gather up all these other cells. So that's why they're bad. So they're going to take healthy cells and turn them into damaging cells.
Right. And they do that with toxins they release.
Toxins that they release. That's exactly it. And so gray hair happens to be the result of senescent cells. Right? So that's one thing. When we're talking about, people that are losing their hair, we can start talking about the lifespan of the hair cell and get into all that. But so when we're looking at shampoos and conditioners that people put in their hair, those things alter the lifespan. My friend Sandy from down in Australia, she taught me that. She said that hair, it goes in and out of these growth cycles.
Yep.
Right. And I don't remember the exact how many months, how many days, whatever, but it goes in and out. And so when you're using a toxic shampoo, what it does is it causes to go out of the growth cycle for longer periods of time. And so it causes some problems by doing that. So now you have lesser amounts that are in a growth cycle than the ones that are out.
Yep. It disrupts the growth cycle of the hair.
Yep. So, so that let's not talk about hair any longer than that. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about eyes and vision, because it was National Vision Month. Actually, it's this month till the end of the week, till 1st September, vision.
And we did a great call on that, so people can go right back in either your YouTube page or our Facebook page, Doctor's Clinic, Doc Biz with Friends, and find that.
Yep, or the YouTube channel, youtube.com/C/sizzle, SISEL, worldteam.com, and they can look at it. And the thing about the vision that I'm just going to say is that one of the worst things that we can do is we can have a diet that's high in processed sugars, processed carbohydrates.
Bad for the eyes, huh?
Really bad for the eyes, because it causes the macular degeneration and things like that. My mom, she just got tested for that. She was just telling me at 82, she said that they're telling her, oh, you're starting to show signs. Starting. Isn't that cool? At over 80 years old? just starting to show signs. Yeah. And, you know, eventually, folks, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. You're going to show signs of aging. You're like an older automobile. I like my automobiles. You're going to have some problems. You're going to need some tune-ups every once in a while. You're going to have to put some additives in that oil and that transmission fluid. You're going to have to change things a little bit once in a while, a little bit more often.
Also concerning the eyes, and it's like we're in the head, right? But also over toxicity of the liver causes eye damage. It's
And we're going to we'll talk about the liver. Yeah, but exactly. Yeah. Toxicity, they collect in the nerves and all that. And then we could talk about, you know, strokes as well, because the optic chiasma, which is the little nerve that goes between, you know, the eyeballs, that one gets plugged up quite easily. The embolisms get lodged in there. So, you know, some things to think about. Skin.
Yes.
You
Our
know,
biggest organ.
yeah, but we see the skin on the face right away. I mean, it's you know, when you look at somebody, like I'm looking at you in on my screen here, I look at your hair, I look at the skin on your face, and you know, and you try and determine, you know, different things. You can tell different things by their skin, and it's kind of a gateway type of a thing. So you can see, you know, how healthy are they by their skin. If their skin is sagging and all wrinkly and they look like they're 95 when they're only 40, there's something probably wrong, right?
Right.
You know, so skin health is important. And if you go to your local department store and you buy all your skincare products off the shelf, guess what you're getting, Andrea?
More toxins usually.
You're getting loaded up with the toxins. And again, you know, people are putting this stuff on polypropylene glycol, right? Or ethylene glycol, which is, you know, it's one of the major components of brake fluid and antifreeze. I'm going to go work on the brakes on my 60 Cadillac this afternoon, and I'm going to be using some propylene glycol.
Right.
In the brakes.
Oh, good.
When I get,
not on your face.
When I get done, I'm not going to put on my hands and smear it on my face.
Right.
You know, I mean, I might get some on my hands because I'm working with the car, but I try and wash it off as quick as I can.
You know, actually, a woman's toxic burden is 65% from personal care products that they use.
Why is that?
Because there's so many toxic substances in their makeups and their lotions and all the things women use.
Yep. Yeah. If you go online, I don't have a copy of it here to share with you. I probably do, but I'm not going to go look for it. You can just type in sizzle and then look for checklist, toxin checklist, right? Or sizzle safe checklist. And somewhere online, you'll come up with a checklist that you can download. You can print it off on your computer, and you can go through your house and you can check off what, you know, do I have this, and it lists it by the room. And, you know, so which is the most dangerous room in your house, Andrea? I know you know the answer.
Bathroom.
The bathroom. You know, a lot of people might say, oh, the garage or the kitchen, because they got all the sharp objects there. Bathroom. Yeah. So skin, really important. You know, again, it's a filter. It filters things in and out. And they're saying that to get adequate dosages of vitamin D, kind of bringing us back to the topic of the day, vitamin D levels are necessary for the immune system. You're supposed to get 20 minutes of whole body exposure to the sun every day.
I do that every day. I just take my clothes off and I go out there for 20 minutes.
I do that too, but you know, I mean, my neighbors don't like it.
Yeah, mine don't either.
They say, get back in your house, get back in. But, you know, yeah, no, you know, 20 minutes of whole body exposure. I mean, okay, yeah, we joke about it. We could do it right now. Like you said, it's 80 degrees there, it's 70, 80 degrees here in North Dakota. We could do it right now, but let's wait a couple months, 60, 90 days, and then try and get 20 minutes of whole body exposure to the sun.
Right. It's too cold. Plus, we don't even get that much exposure of the right rays up here in the north.
Yeah, because the sun is coming in at an angle like this instead of coming in like this. And so we just don't get the exposure. So that's why you need more vitamin D when you live up north. And like you and I, we have lighter colored skin, you're redhead. You produce enough vitamin D probably just by getting outside. But people who have darker skin, people who tan really easily, they actually don't produce as much vitamin D. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, darker skinned people, people who tan really easily, don't absorb vitamin D.
Oh, their
Right?
receptors are full.
Because the dark skin blocks it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So they need to have more vitamin D. So let's move on to talking about the brain. We're trying to, the body's a big thing. We've only, we haven't even gotten off the first line of that page that I sent you. So
Right.
the brain is so important. They're saying right now, because people have gotten so used to hearing about people having cancer that they just assume, oh, I'm going to get cancer someday. And they don't even worry about it. A lot of people don't do the preventative stuff that they probably should, as far as like when, and my dogs are barking, so I got to always watch to see what they're barking at. But they don't do the preventative stuff for the cancer, but they're all worried about, well, I don't want to lose my mind. I don't want to have dementia. I don't want to have Alzheimer's, right? And it's actually a hotter topic than talking about cancer.
Yeah, and we've done a lot of talks on that. There's a lot of pretty scary statistics out there, or predictions about how many people are going to end up with dementia or Alzheimer's.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine last night. He called me up and he said, "Hey, would you talk to my buddy Don? Don lives in Oregon, but his wife is stuck in a dementia home here in Fargo." And I said, "Why is she stuck there?" And he didn't really give me a good answer. But dementia and Alzheimer's, two different things, but one can lead to the other. And so there's some things that you can do to help lower your risk. MCT, which comes from coconut oil, caprylic acid, capric acid. It comes from coconut oil, and medium chain triglycerides is what it stands for. And they're really beneficial when you're talking about brain health. They help make the fatty content, because your brain is a high percentage of fat. And think of it like in a computer, the circuit board is made up of lots of little copper that's connected, and silver and gold. And your better electronics has gold connections versus copper connections, because it works better. Well, in your brain, those connections aren't gold or silver or copper. They're made with fat. So you want to have good fat content. And that's why the medium chain triglycerides are really important. And watching your diet, you and I talk a lot about keto diet. And so we want to talk about good fats versus bad fats. And then there's other things too, like magnesium. They say that most people are magnesium deficient. We have a magnesium deficiency pandemic or epidemic in our country. So we need to use magnesium, and you want to use a form of magnesium that gets right into the brain. And so we've got a product, and I'm going to throw a product out there called Brain Vitality that has the right form of magnesium. And then turmeric, curcumin, gets rid of inflammation. And they show that that's really important, because a lot of the chronic diseases of the brain are caused by inflammation.
Right.
So we can lower that. So your omega-3s, your magnesium, things like that. And then that kind of the brain, that leads us to the next thing, which is the central nervous system, the spinal cord and all of that. And so all of these things help protect the nervous system, right?
Yes.
People can't hear you.
I said yes.
Oh, you got to remember that a lot of people, they say that 60% of people, when they're watching a video, they aren't actually watching it. They're only listening. They're doing something else with their eyes. They might be doing the dishes, making coffee, whatever, driving their car.
True. I do it all the time.
Right. So when you're doing a video, you got to remember that. You got to take that into account. So you got to actually physically say yes.
That was my signal to you. Yes, go
Okay.
on.
So then we talk about a couple of other things. Mood, right?
Moods.
Moods and your your overall feeling of that kind of thing. And so last Friday I did a talk on CBD. Last night Tom Jr. and Jason talked about CBD a little bit. They did a quick half-hour call on it because we're launching a CBD product down in Australia. We had to change the formulation just a little bit. We had to reduce the THC levels in order to launch it down in Australia. So it has almost non-detectable amounts of THC, but it has enough that it still works like a full spectrum. But they find that CBD enhances your overall feeling of wellness and it helps reduce stress levels in the brain. They found that every cell in your body, I know you know this, you knew more about CBD than I did when we first started talking about it. You probably still do, because you were kind of a hippie back in the day, weren't you?
No.
No, but I thought you said you were flower child. But anyhow, so when you talk about CBD, every cell in the body has receptor sites for CBD. It's called the endocannabinoid system, right?
Yeah.
And your body actually makes endocannabinoids, right? And so they're saying that our body only makes 70% of what we need. So we're deficient by 30%.
Uh-huh.
So are my dogs bothering you? Can you hear them wrestling?
Yeah, we can hear them.
Is it bad? Do I need to chase them out of the room, lock them outside? Hey,
Yep.
Quit it.
Give them a treat.
Give
Give
them
them
a
a
treat.
steak. Give them a steak.
Give them a steak. Yeah, then they're going to be happy for 5 minutes. Sit down.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so endocannabinoids. So we have a product. We have a THC free one, which is a broad spectrum, and then we have a full spectrum. And like Tom Jr. was talking about last night, when you compare it to any of the other CBD products on the market, we do have the best.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it's third-party tested, third-party validated. When you look at the label, what's on the label is what's in the product, nothing else, nothing more, nothing less. And then Tom was talking about, when you look at a lot of these products where they haven't really gone through a lot of research on how to make their product, when they're trying to reduce the THC levels down to that 0.3%, because industrial hemp, which is what we use, versus marijuana is high in THC, low in CBD. Industrial hemp is high in CBD, low in THC, but there's enough CBD or enough THC in there that you do have to take some out.
Okay.
And so if you don't get it out right away, if you have to process your CBD oil over and over and over again, every time you process it, you reduce the amount of the good things in the CBD. And so you're not just reducing the THC, you're reducing the good things. So Sizzle uses a method where we reduce that THC quickly so that it doesn't cause any problems with all the other active ingredients. And they're finding like there's over 100 different cannabinoids in CBD, in hemp.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah. So that helps with moods, but they also found, you and I have talked about that, digestive health, and we'll talk about digestive health. So all these things are kind of going to wrap together. It's a complex web, right?
It is.
And so the healthy bacteria in your gut can actually give you a feeling of wellness as well. And so if your gut is
or non-wellness,
yeah,
you have a unhealthy gut.
If your gut is messed up, your brain's gonna be messed up, isn't it?
Yep.
So we want to talk about that, and then sleep. So many people, they're stressed out and they can't sleep, and we live in a stressed out world right now. Without getting into all that, but we live in a stressed out world, and so we want to reduce that. And so using things that help with the brain. A lot of your your neurochemicals, serotonin, those types of things, the neurotransmitters, and we have to get that balanced out. We have to have a balance of that. So there's a lot of different things that we can talk about, and that's going to help with sleep. And we've got a product that uses these products that balance that type of stuff out, the ashwagandha.
Mm-hmm.
And
Ashwagandha.
it helps with sleep. And then we talk about energy. Do you know that a lot of people, I think it was like close to well, when I was in practice, it was over 90% of people, the primary reason that they go to the doctor, that they go to the clinic, is because of a lack of energy. They're fatigued out all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, 90%. I don't know if that's what it is today, but that's what it was 15 years ago. Do you know that in a couple of days it'll be the start of my 15th year since my motorcycle accident?
Wow.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that the other day. Anyhow, so lack of energy. So if you can take and you can get your neurochemicals balanced out, you're going to have better energy. If you keep your stress levels down, you're going to have better energy. Let's move on. I just called it in my category in my notes. I just called it body.
Okay, that would be heart, liver, lungs, stomach, digestion.
Yeah. So the number one killer in America continues to be cardiovascular health.
Mm-hmm.
It's no matter what goes on in the world. If we cure COVID, if we cure cancer, there's going to be another disease we're going to see, you know, because we aren't curing it all, because the answer to it is that everything is whole body.
Yes,
it
is.
If you go after one thing, there's going to be something else, right?
It's all interconnected.
It's all interconnected. So cardiovascular health, you know, again, inflammation. You're going to hear me saying that, and you're going to hear
Where do you
Andrea
get the inflammation from? The toxins.
From the toxins. That's exactly it, and from your diet, right? Where we're eating a diet. They show that when we take a look at diet, right? When they take a look at diet, we have a diet that's high in the pro-inflammatory fats, the pro-inflammatory foods like processed carbohydrates, but pro-inflammatory fats too, which is your omega-6s, versus the anti-inflammatories, which are your omega-3s. And it's supposed to be a ratio of, like, you know, they say if we can get it down to 4-to-1, we're doing good. But ideally 1-to-1. For every pro-inflammatory, you have an anti-inflammatory. They balance each other out. We need pro-inflammatories, because if I go out and fall today and sprain my ankle, I need inflammation. It's part of the healing process. If I get an infection, we need some inflammation, but there's got to be a regulation where it stops. And the problem with it is that they're saying that, I've read some articles that say we're at close to 30-to-1 for every one anti-inflammatory. We have omega-3. We've got 30 pro-inflammatory omega-6s.
No wonder we're so toxic and inflamed.
Right, and what happens is that, so when your body gets this inflammation, it just can't deal with it. It gets overwhelmed. And isn't that what's happening right now when you hear this cytokine storm?
Right.
So that moves us to, you know, to the next thing, which is the lungs. And so lung health and cardiovascular health, they go hand in hand. You can't have one without having the other one.
Right.
You know, a good friend of mine, he passed away now, I want to say it was about 8 or 9 years ago. And he had hardening of the arteries in his lungs. You know how people have atherosclerosis? Right? He had sclerosis in the arteries in his lungs, nowhere else in his body, but in his lungs.
Wow.
Right? So that caused pulmonary hypertension. So he had high blood pressure inside of his lungs. Tell me how you control that.
Get rid of the inflammation and get rid of the toxins.
Yeah, but in his case, you know, again, it was overwhelming. His body couldn't handle it anymore, and the only way that he could really deal with it was to have a lung transplant. But by the time he got approved for it, it was too late and whatever. But anyhow, you know, so lungs are so important, because what happens in the lungs, you know, a lot of people don't realize it. They don't think about it. you breathe in the air, and what it does is there's an exchange there. Your cells, your red blood cells, grab the fresh oxygen and pushes out the carbon dioxide. Fresh oxygen, get rid of the carbon dioxide. So there's that exchange inside the lung, and then your body circulates this oxygen. Well, if your lungs aren't healthy, how can you do that?
Right.
How can you do that? Yeah. And so inside the lungs, there's this thin layer of cells, but inside of that, coating that, there's this mucous membrane. And we've talked about it in the past, especially when we talk about the gut, which we'll talk about in a second, but the microbiome. The microbiome. So there's a microbiome inside of your lungs, just like there's a microbiome inside of your gut. And if that microbiome is out of whack, if it's out of balance, how can you expect it to work properly?
Correct.
How can you expect it to work properly? So what happens is that it's out of whack. So, what the next thing that's on my list is the gut, the digestive system. And we've already said, you've got 70% of your immune system is in your gut. You've got the healthy bacteria that sends signals to your brain and has a direct communication that they haven't figured out yet. I mean, if you've got bad bacteria in your gut, Andrea, it can tell you, oh, you're going to have a bad day. Right? And now that same microbiome, they're saying that there's a separate microbiome inside your sinuses, inside your ears, inside your pancreas, inside your bladder, inside your lungs. And, so they give us, we take these probiotics, and probiotics are healthy. You got all the different bacteria, but they're showing that that's not enough.
Right.
That's not enough. I mean, if I take some seeds and I throw it out in the yard, yeah, I might get some plants. I might have a little garden, but it's not going to have a healthy crop, is it?
No.
Why is that?
Well, because some of the seeds will die. It doesn't have a good environment for them to grow.
Yeah, you didn't worry about the environment, putting the fertilizer down and making sure you have the right kind of soil, because different soil is. And so when we look at the microbiome, guess what it's made out of, Andrea?
I don't know what.
Fulvic acid, humic acid, dirt. Right. And I know you like to talk about that because you like to call it dinosaur poop.
Yeah.
You and your dinosaur poop and your zombies,
As we're using fulvic acid, we don't get any like latent dinosaur eggs in it.
Dinosaur eggs, that's what it is. Yeah, keto. But so, but there is some of that in there in fulvic acid. If you look at the stuff that comes from ancient seabeds and stuff like that, oh, I'm sure. But most of it is seaweed that's decayed, and it's just like when you put compost on your garden, that's fulvic acid. There's fulvates and humates in there, and that's what we need. And there's certain ones that they find that are really good, and they'll bring the toxins out and they'll pull the vitamins in. Toxins out, vitamins in, which is good. It's something that we need, isn't it?
Right.
I'm trying to talk fast. I'm looking at the time here.
It does lots of things.
Yeah.
Lots of.
And then you take a look. You and I have talked about this again. The kidney. Kidneys are so important. It's like having a filter on your car.
Yeah, it's a toxin filter, basically.
Yeah. It filters things out of the blood and takes them out of the body, and it works on a system that's a balanced pH. A balanced pH. And so you hear people talking about, oh, I'm on an alkaline diet. Oh, I drink alkaline water, things like that. But there's some truth and some falsehoods when you're talking about those sorts of things. We won't get into that right now. We're just going to say that they're showing right now that in the next 20, 30 years, the studies by the American Kidney Association is saying that we're going to have some major problems in our country.
Yeah, because we have major toxins. If it's a toxin filter and you are intaking a lot of toxins, you're plugging it up, wearing it out.
Yeah. And sugar is a
Clean that
toxin.
filter.
Excess sugar is a toxin, you know, and then we and
Mhm.
moving into, I mean, isn't it funny how all these things just kind of flow? The next thing I have on my list is the liver,
Right. That's
right?
an important word.
Because that's also another filter. It
Mhm.
filters junk out, you know, and you know, if your diet is high in carbohydrates, you're gonna be using a lot more of your liver to do that. If you're eating a diet that's high in pro-inflammatory fats, then your liver has to produce bile. That bile goes to the gallbladder holds it and releases it, but you're putting that stress on the liver. So if you're eating a lot of bad fats, guess what? You're overworking the liver, and a lot of people don't think about that.
Right.
You know, so you want to have that balance. Again, everything is so balanced. You know, you don't want to be. I hear people saying, "Oh, I'm a strict vegan." Well, the problem with being a strict vegan is you're going to be missing some of your key nutrients. How do you get your good fats and bad fats if all you're eating is vegetables, unless you really know what you're doing?
Right.
And most vegans don't. Right?
Right. I'll agree with you.
You'll just agree with me. So, you know, we talk about these different things, and we talk about the digestive system, how important it is for your health, because that's where you have that exchange of good nutrients and toxins, right? We hear people, you've heard the saying, you are what you eat, right?
Oh yeah. For years
Right?
and years and years.
Yeah, you probably taught it to your kids. You probably have told your grandchildren, you are what you eat.
Yep.
But what you should be saying is you are what you don't poop out.
There you go. That's a good one.
Yeah. I mean, because you know, you're not really are what you eat, because you know, if you're not going to the bathroom, you're not getting rid of the crap, right? Then that crap is staying inside you, and that's what your body's using to make you.
Ooh, yuck.
Yeah, it can mess up a whole lot of things. And that's where we start talking about the endocrine system, the next thing on my list. Again, think of how this is all tied together in the endocrine system and the adrenal glands, right? That's where
Yeah.
your adrenal cortex hormones are all produced, your cortisols, your norepinephrine, your epinephrine, you know, adrenaline is another name for it. Your dopamine, which is for brain and like Parkinson's. We hear about people talking about Parkinson's. All these things are so important. So you got to keep that balanced out. Again, you know, you start looking at all the different things that we can talk about regarding that.
Right.
You know, but bottom line is like you mentioned before, toxins, toxicity.
It is. And that's why we work with a company that has a main philosophy of producing non-toxic formulations and products.
Yep, get those toxins out of your system, because a lot of the toxins that are out there are endocrine disrupting. They disrupt the hormones. They cause major problems, right? And even your diet. You know, I listened to Suzanne Summers. I don't know if you listen to any of the stuff that she's done. You know, you probably think of her as that ditzy blonde from Three's Company.
Some people might think that.
But she actually has put out some pretty good literature, and she talks about how just eating the wrong foods at the wrong time of year, you know, because our bodies have been designed for thousands and thousands of years, and in the fall we have the harvest, and we have certain foods in the fall, and in the winter we have certain foods that are available in the winter, and then in the spring we have certain foods that are available in the spring and the summer. And if you eat the same food all year round, it disrupts that normal system inside your body, that homeostasis. It disrupts that because your body wasn't designed for that. Eventually we'll evolve into that, but we're not right now. And so here I am in Fargo, North Dakota, a couple months. You know, we won't have any fresh fruits and vegetables.
Right. You have to
They're
just
not,
eat meat all winter.
yeah, they're not fresh fruits and vegetables if they're sitting on the shelf at the grocery store, you know, for 3 months.
Right.
That's not fresh. If you're hitting it with radiation and storing it in a you know, nitrogen freezer, it's not fresh.
Right.
You know, so that's the things that you know I like to talk about. So now let's move on to talking about, you know, the extremities. So now we're going to go to the arms and the legs and the feet and the hands and things like that. And so we talk about bone health, getting enough calcium. But everybody, you know, I remember years ago, people, you know, they were all hyped up about getting calcium, the right type of calcium. Oh, I want the eggshell calcium. Oh, I want the, you know, the coral calcium, you know, and things like that. And but what they didn't realize is that there's lots of other minerals that go into the bone, lots of other minerals that go into the bone to make a strong bone. And so we've got products out there that have a balance on that. They have a balance of the different, you know, elements and minerals that need to be in the product to make it work right. And then there's something called hydroxyapatite. It's the glue that holds everything together. Because otherwise, if you just take a bunch of minerals and you dump them in a bag, you could shake it up. It's just dust, right?
Yeah.
You have to have that organic matrix that holds it together, right? That holds my finger bones together, that holds my arm together. And you know, we start looking at that, and as you get older, you start to lose that organic matrix in there, and all of a sudden, people start to have brittle bones.
Okay.
You know, and you and I have talked about with vitamin K2.
Right.
Vitamin K2, and so the studies out of Japan are just amazing on vitamin K2. They show that you can take a lot higher dosages than what the RDA has limited us to, because they limited the amount of K2 because they said that if you get too much K2, it causes too much thinning of the blood.
How many people are on blood thinners?
Right. But yeah, so they say, oh, take the blood thinner, but don't take the K2. But they found that, you know, like say my coffee mug here, once it's full, it's full.
Yeah.
And so then it can't cause my cup to be over full. I can't put any more in it. Once it's full to the top, it's full to the top. And so it's done its job. I put in enough coffee that my coffee cup is full. So the rest of the coffee that's in my coffee cup, in my coffee pot, I might be able to give that to someone else, or I might be able to have it for another meal or whatever. Well, that's what they found is the same thing. I'm just trying to make an analogy so you guys can see this. For you guys out there in TV land, you can see this. That K2, once that cup is full, it doesn't cause overthinning of the blood. I can't overfill my cup. When the cup's full, it's full. When your body's got enough K2 for thinning of the blood, the rest of the K2 goes and does something else. Guess what it does?
So let me get this straight. Based on what you just said, like the minerals are in there, but the K2 helps to bind them together, or it causes them to work together.
K2, vitamin D, they work together. All that stuff works together. And so the studies out of Japan showed that if we give people in excess of what the RDA says of K2, think of it like your coffee cup. You give more than this, the rest of the K2 goes to work building strong bones. So they've shown in their studies in Japan, they can actually reverse osteomalacia and osteoporosis, osteopenia, by giving more K2.
Awesome.
Isn't that cool? So you start looking at some of these studies that are coming out, and yeah, you can go to your doctor, and your doctor's not going to know about that study. I've talked to several of my friends who are medical doctors, and they're like, "Oh, where'd you get that information?" You know, that's just your vitamin company. That's just Sizzle telling you. No, it's a study. There's studies out of Japan. Actually, Sizzle doesn't even produce a overabundant K2 product yet, because the RDA, and we have to tend to follow that RDA in order to have our certified good manufacturing, our CGMP rating with the FDA. You know, so all these things kind of play into this, but you know, so Sizzle's coming out. Yeah, we're gonna have a collagen product.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're gonna have a collagen product, right? And I've tested it. I'm out now. I ran out. I liked it. I found that it really helped out with my leg was damaged 13 years ago in a motorcycle wreck, and using that product for the last month, I just ran out a day ago, and I found that it really helped with with that scar tissue. My foot has more flexibility now than it's had in 14 years, and but it helps with remodeling of the collagen, the cartilage, right? The cartilage in your joints that holds your joints and your ligaments together, and it helps with the remodeling. It helps with your skin and things like that. Yeah, so it helps with inflammation, helps with healthy nails,
hair,
all
skin.
collagen, right? So you have type 1, type 2, type 3 collagens, right? All important types of stuff. So we can go on and on and on about that. Again, I'm trying to watch the time here, and so finally on the bottom of my list, Andrea, I really felt like we've talked about head to toe. Now let's talk about longevity. Because if you keep your brain working, if you keep everything, all your organs working, you're organically healthy, and you keep all your structural components like the spine and the legs and the arms good and strong, and your muscle, good and strong. Oh, we should mention this. There was a study by Dr. Wolf, $25 million in research that went into the studies. They showed that if you can keep your muscles strong into old age, it helps lower the rate of dementia.
Yep.
Right. So so their study was basically, he wanted to find, what message, what's the messenger? Again, everything is a message. What messenger do you need in the body to tell your body produce new muscle? Produce new muscle. And so he came up with a formula using branch chain amino acids in a specific formulation, and that's what we use in our rib product to help the body build new muscle. So for those young people that want to be muscular, for those people who want to build new muscle while they're on a weight loss program like me, for people who are like my son who wants to build muscle, yeah, great product. For people who are 80 years old and they want to prevent dementia, they want to lower the rate of dementia, there's $25 million worth of research that went into that product.
Yep.
And we can say it went into that product because we used the exact formulation that Dr. Wolf formulated, that he did the research on.
Right.
So, but when we're talking about longevity and health span and things like that, I always tell people, I want to live to be 110 years old. That's my goal, and I'll die trying. Right.
You would.
But the thing about it is, Andrea, who wants to be 100 years old if you're going to feel like you're 200 years old?
Right. Well, that's why we're talking about all these things and why we come on here every Tuesday and share information for people so that they can live healthier longer.
That's right. Yeah. So, because again, live healthier longer. That's a key thing. Live healthier longer. That should be the tagline of this call, live healthier longer. And, because we can hack the system now. They figured out how, that seems to be the key word here that everybody's using. Younger people seem to like that. We're going to hack the system. So we're hacking the system. We figured out how to work with the telomeres. Yeah. We figured out using astragalus, and we figured out using bacopa, and we figured out how to use, turmeric and different things to manipulate the telomeres so they stay healthier longer. They stay longer.
Right. We need them longer.
Right? Longer. And then we've broken into this science of the sirtuin genes. They found with the studies that came out of Harvard, they found that resveratrol is beneficial for the sirtuin genes, and sirtuin genes are the repair genes. They're the ones that when you have damaged DNA, they go in there and they fix it. They put the little pieces back together. They take the damage, like if you get hit with radiation, you have damaged DNA. The sirtuin or the sirtuin genes knows how to take that damaged part out and fix it. And they found that NAD is the fuel for the sirtuin genes. NAD is the fuel, so it all works together. And resveratrol is the repair mechanism. It helps with that repair mechanism, and then everything kind of comes down to senescence that you and I have talked about, the zombie cells. So,
Right.
you know, I know we went overboard by a few minutes. You know, actually, I think we talked about 45 minutes now, Andrea, instead of the half hour. But we covered a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, we covered a
Yeah,
lot of stuff.
kind of an overall head to toe.
Head to
And,
toe.
you know, if anybody wants to find more information about any body parts we talked about, they can just scroll back in our videos or in our lives on Facebook. And I've tried to like put a topic in there, main topic, so they can just easily find things. Just scroll back and find them.
Yep. Or go on my YouTube channel. We have so many videos on the YouTube channel. Sometimes it's easier to go on there and just go on youtube.com/C/Sizzle World Team, SISEL World Team.
That's confusing. Just go Sizzle World Team. They'll find it. And then when you get in there, there's a toolbar and you hit videos and it will show you all the videos. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can watch all of our past videos. We've been doing this now. I mean, you and I have been doing this, what, 4 years?
Yep.
So we started about the same time that Age Bill came out. And before that, I was doing this call with DW. And Rob Cohen was, bless his soul, Rob Cohen was the guy who behind the scene running the computers. I didn't have to do it. I didn't have to know how to do that stuff back then. So I've only learned how to do this stuff in the last 4 or 5 years.
You're doing a great job.
So you can teach an old dog new trick.
That's right.
All right,
especially
folks. Thanks for being with us today. Thanks for sharing some of your time. If you're listening to the recording, thanks for spending the time to listen to it. Sometimes we get a little long-winded, but you know, if you pick up one little bit of information, it's worth it.
Right, right. That's what we're here for, to share good news.
All right. Have a good one.
Okay, bye.
Bye.